just connecting into Facebook and giving everyone a chance to arrive. Please say hi as you're joining me. I'm going to bring up the comments now. Into Facebook. Okie doke. Welcome. I've decided to use some Zoom so that I can share my slideshow with you as well. So thank you, Amy, for having me. I am really happy to be able to be here and to talk with you all about especially making a meditation practice that sticks and that will work for you, and about meditation in general and how it can benefit fertility. So I know, of course, because I'm here with Circle and Bloom, that many of you are already familiar with the benefits of meditation and mindfulness and some of the great programs that are offered through Circle and Bloom. So today I'm going to talk a little bit more about making a meditation practice and how to have a program or a practice that integrates well into your life. You know, trying to conceive is a very difficult and busy, challenging time. So it's a time when that meditation, that ability to be present, to be calm, to be aware of what you're experiencing as you're experiencing it, is especially beneficial. And I teach meditation and mindfulness, but my background is also as an acupuncturist. And by the way, you are welcome to put any comments or questions into the comments section, the chat section of the Facebook feed. And using Zoom, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, but I will take breaks and look through them and be sure to look at the end to see if you have any questions. So feel free to connect with me that way, because I am here to support you. So in addition to teaching meditation and mindfulness, I'm also an acupuncturist, predominantly, although I do practice shiatsu and offer Chinese herbs in my practice here, which is in the Marblehead area, northeast of Boston on the coast. And so my initial encounter with all things Chinese medicine was really through Tai Chi and meditation, which I started doing when I was a teenager. I was counting it before in the shower. I think it's been 28 years since I started that. And then throughout my 20s, I lived overseas for about 13 years in Japan and Australia. And I continued to do some work with Qigong and Tai Chi and a little bit of meditation. But it was really much later when I knew I wanted to do therapeutic work with my hands. So I started to learn shiatsu, which is like acupressure. And that eventually led on to me doing acupuncture and studying Chinese herbs. And I did those in a number of countries, different countries. I started studying in Japan and then in Australia and then finishing in the US and all of those trainings. And I began to use meditation and mindfulness in my treatments, in my sessions with patients. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen now. And let's find that. Here we go. Just a little bit. All right, hopefully you all can see that. Let me know with a thumbs up if you can see it. And let's see if I can check over to the Facebook group. Then I'll know if I think it should work. I'm going to trust in the internet. So I came to see meditation and mindfulness as part of a therapeutic treatment. And I work a lot with fertility and women's health, also work through pregnancy and postpartum. But I love working with fertility. And one of the reasons I love working with fertility is because I think that the mindfulness and meditation piece, this working with the emotional aspect, is so crucial. All right, and check. Okay, looks like we're good. You can see it. So I think of elements sometimes, cues of meditation. I'm gonna go right into the fertility piece and how I kind of combine these. Start with that. I think of the cues that I would use. Normally, I will put, if you've had acupuncture maybe as part of your fertility journey, trying to conceive already, you might know what it's like to go in and talk to a practitioner a little bit, and then they'll put some needles, insert the needles, and then usually they leave the room and you might rest or fall asleep even. So typically after I've inserted needles, I will do a short guided meditation. It's not the same for each person, it's different. And that's where I will think about the cues that I use in meditation as a part of the treatment, just as I would think about the point selection of different acupuncture points or different herbs for an herbal therapy as being something that might address a specific pattern that a patient is presenting. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. In Chinese medicine and acupuncture and Chinese herbs, we're dealing with the 4 phases in a cycle with fertility, and always working with the yin and the yang. Many other things as well, but for these purposes, we're gonna stick to that. And so some examples of what that can look like in my practice is that during the first couple of phases, the period, the menstrual phase, and the follicular phase, I'll be focusing on the yin aspect, nourishing the blood and the yin. So the meditation cues might involve more grounding, working with what I think of as touch points, some contact with the ground, the ability to receive nourishment, to be nourished. And then during the other 2 phases of the cycle, ovulatory and the luteal phase, I'm going to work on sort of building up the yang. And actually, from a more physiological standpoint, you can think of the way, if you know much about the hormones, the progesterone spikes, right, during this phase. And that is very much like the yang when you think of its action to warm the body. So working with warmth, spaciousness, abundance, this sense of self-compassion, however, as well, because this waiting time is often the most stressful in that luteal phase. So just as I would use acupuncture needles to kind of emphasize what phase the woman is in her cycle, I will use different cues in my meditation to also support that. So I thought we might take just a moment now to do a short practice that kind of links into these things, just so you have a sense of that. And then I want to continue to talk more about building a practice and some of the practical pieces to integrating. So take a moment. I will stop sharing my screen and invite you all to come into a comfortable position, just a very short practice. Take a pause to look at the Facebook screen. Good, we're all good. So we're just going to take a few minutes and to connect with this idea of how meditation can be nourishing the yin in those first 2 phases and nourishing the yang in those other 2 phases. And so go ahead and just take a moment to find a posture that's comfortable. Let yourself find a position of ease using any props you need to sit or lie down comfortably. Closing your eyes for a moment if that's available to you. And just letting yourself arrive. As you shift your attention inwards, become aware of your breath. Just noticing the sensations of breath flowing. Maybe you notice where it's easiest to connect with the breath, and becoming aware of your body sitting or lying. And bring your attention to those points of contact with the ground beneath you. You might feel the ground beneath your feet, or perhaps your pelvis, the base of your spine, your sit bones, maybe your legs as well, this lower half of your body. And even if you're lying on a bed or not connected to the ground itself, the bed is like the ground. It's this sense of being supported beneath you. And maybe as you bring your awareness to the touch points, these points of contact, you can invite them to soften just a little bit. Allow yourself to settle with a sense of ease, sinking perhaps a little deeper into the ground. And that point of contact, the more we stay with it, the more it can become this squishy, jelly like substance, this warm receiving. Feel the ground receiving and holding and supporting you. Allow yourself to settle into more and more ease and rest. Maybe you feel a sense of the ground rising up in you, a sense of belonging with the ground beneath you. Letting yourself arrive like a jar of sand and water comes to land after being shaken, feeling each grain reintegrate into a new whole. Feel the sense of gravity, the pressure of sitting. And returning your attention to the breath for a moment, feel each inhale stretching up your spine, each exhale settling a little more. That sense of ease and downward movement towards the ground. And bringing to mind a wide open sky. Imagining the deep blue expanse of sky. Feeling a sense of lightness in your upper body as your head stretches towards the heavens, towards the open sky. A sense of dignity and ease. Imagining the warmth of the sun radiating onto you. Let yourself receive that warmth, carrying the nourishment of the sun throughout your body with the breath. Feel each cell receiving nourishment and energy. And now, wherever you are in your cycle, you might focus more on settling towards the earth, cultivating the yin, nourishment, or opening up a sense of spaciousness, or finding a balance between the two. Taking a final few moments to be where you are. And then opening your eyes, making any movements your body craves, and returning your attention to your surroundings and coming back to be with me. How do you feel now? How was that? That was an example of what it's like to kind of focus on this, sinking, settling, ease, the nourishment of the ground, the support, the yin, letting yourself rest into things. And then the sense, I only did a little bit, but the sense of activating this spaciousness and the energy and the sunlight and the warmth. This is sort of how I will use it in a more therapeutic application. But I've discovered that the best treatment is when patients can take this practice and do it on their own, not just in treatment with me. Like all of these, lifestyle modifications are so important for working with fertility. I mean, we know that there are many benefits to meditation and decreasing stress and so many other things, improving lots of physiological improvements to health. But it can be difficult to then make that into a consistent practice. So that consistent practice, showing up when it's good and bad, this becomes the key for really getting the most benefit from mindfulness and meditation. And that's why I want to talk to you a little bit more about. What I'm talking about today is very much what I teach in my Path to Presence retreat. I kind of did a little synopsis of what I would do in the 5-day free retreat. I do these a couple times a year, so the next one's in the middle of April. I think it might be April 14th. I didn't check the time if you want to follow this deeper, but I'm going to give you an overview today. And the retreat that I lead, and even today, is meant to pop or burst the retreat bubble. So in my journey with meditation, I have really enjoyed and benefited from several silent meditation retreats or yoga or Tai Chi and Qigong retreats that I've been on. And when you're in the thick of it, it's so easy to maintain a practice. It feels so good. It's all you're doing, right? If it's a silent meditation retreat, you're not even engaging with other people very much. And then the difficulty is when the retreat bubble is broken and it becomes so hard to show up and practice when life is hard and when you're busy and when you're not on retreat, right? It's not always the most realistic model. So I have boiled down these 3 reasons, boiled it down to a simple kind of few reasons why it's hard to make a meditation practice stick. So it might be that there is a problem in the expectations that you have about meditation. Or it might be expectations about yourself, and in a more practical sense about what you can manage and your time and things like that. Or it might be difficult to make a meditation practice stick because of some limiting beliefs you have, maybe difficulty prioritizing yourself. So let's look at the first one in expectations about meditation. These are some of the meditation myths that I will commonly begin my meditation classes addressing. So take a brief check. Okay. So meditation is pure void. Can you really silence your monkey mind? This expectation that you should have pure and absolute silence. I'm going to return to look at these. Oh, meditation makes you lazy and selfish. Right. Similarly to the first one is the idea that meditation is pure bliss and enlightenment. You might be very disappointed. Well, you can have moments of bliss and enlightenment and feeling totally, harmonious and connected, present, all of these things. It's It's going to be difficult to maintain a meditation practice if that's your expectation every time, for the times when you feel bored or frustrated or scattered or distracted or upset, right? Feel the stickiness of grief and anger. And sometimes people have difficulty really paying attention or working with and engaging with the meditation practice because of this belief that it makes you lazy or selfish. When, many of us know, but the meditation is training the attention and can often make us the opposite of lazy, can really give us clarity on what's important to our lives and how we can put that into action, not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others as well, and activate some compassion. And another really important myth about meditation is that there is only one right way to meditate. There is no magic way to do it correctly. There's not one right time, ideal length of time to meditate. There's not one right mantra or one right practice. And so I really encourage everyone to have a sort of childlike curiosity, to bring this beginner's mind to meditation. And really, you only have two jobs in this, and you'll probably hear me say this again. One is to show up, and the other is to notice. What are you resonating with? What are you needing? How is it going? And I mentioned before, we know there are so many benefits of meditation, but and in some ways, meditation is simple, right? We sit down, we're quiet. That's one of the myths I have in there too. But simple is not always easy. And so I think there's actually a lot of information out there on different kinds of meditation and different meditation practices. And I'm glad to see that it's become more common, and there's a whole bunch of things for free that are available or not too expensive. But I don't see that there's a lot of instruction on how to really integrate a meditation practice into your life and how to have it be something you can show up for in a more consistent way. And so I wanted to address those other couple of reasons: the expectations about yourself and the limiting self-beliefs. Those are kind of two sides of the same coin, where you might not be having the most compassionate or realistic relationship with yourself. So sometimes people will have the best intentions and they'll get excited. Maybe they've had a retreat, maybe they've had another exposure experience or epiphany, and they're committed to sitting and meditating for 30 minutes a day, half an hour, even 20 minutes, or maybe it's an hour. But to kind of jump right in with a big expectation and sometimes being overly ambitious, even though, yes, you'll get these benefits and it is a well-intended idea, that unfortunately can often lead to a sense of failure, disappointment, and not make you want to show up time and time again to sit and do some meditation. On the other hand, if you're having difficulty prioritizing yourself, making the space, creating the space that you need, then it's also hard to show up and to continue to have the space and the ability to integrate the practice into your life. So my approach to that is that to make the practice truly stick, you have to make it personal and relevant to you. You have to tailor it to suit you, where you're at now. Really be realistic with your expectations, and try to have these 5 questions that I have here that you can ask yourself and engage with your practice to work on building the habit, on making a practice that you can integrate with your life now, but also you can return to these questions later as things change and shift. We're in the journey to try to conceive now, but maybe down the road, you are a busy mother or parent, and things might be quite different, and you might want to re-engage with what your practice looks like, the form of your practice, so that you can continue to have a practice that can grow with you. That's sort of the ultimate goal. And so these are the questions that I have people ask themselves, and we're going to go through some of them now. I'm going to take a short break to look and see if there are any questions yet. There we go. Yeah. All right. And I just see just a comment, someone saying hello from Brookline. Great. All right. So coming back over, here we go. First question. Oops. I went too far. There we go. The first question is why? So what draws you to meditation? It might seem like an obvious question, but the amazing thing when I do teach meditation classes is everyone has a different reason. It is actually highly personable. You know, I shared before that there are many different benefits: improving sleep, reducing blood pressure, improving relationships, cultivating a sense of compassion, calming anxiety, so many more than that even, right? So what are the benefits that you are seeking? And you can take a moment now to think about that, to think about why you're here. What is your motivation? What has brought you to this path? So this is an important starting point because it can inform everything else about how we set up our practice and how you integrate it. The next one, of course, is when. And this is one of the more difficult aspects in integrating a practice. So I generally suggest you want to find a balance between when it's easiest for you in your daily life, when it would fit in, and when it would best align with the benefits you're seeking. And so I usually recommend that people might kind of start to pay attention to the other habits that they have on a daily basis. And you can even write out a list of all the different things you do during the day. Sometimes we can make use of something called habit stacking, where as you're beginning a new habit or growing, if you already have a meditation practice, growing your habit, you might look at other habits that you already have and ways that those habits can serve as a cue or a reminder for you to meditate. So if you have a dog, it might be that you make it a cue to sit and meditate after feeding the dog or going for a walk. Or it might be that you haven't quite gotten to a meditation practice, but you just want to take a few mindful, deep breaths, have this sort of informal meditation practice, and you're going to do that while waiting for the coffee to be made. Or something else that happens with like pretty predictable consistency. So looking at when it's easiest, and also, as I mentioned, when it would best align with your why. So for example, if you are hoping to calm anxiety or to improve sleep, then it might be best for you to try meditating in the evenings, as the day winds down, before you go to bed, something like that. And if you are looking to de-stress and your primary source of stress is a work situation, you might benefit from doing a meditation. Probably, I've often used commuting with a lot of mindfulness things. Probably not many people are commuting anymore. If you are commuting, I actually have people sometimes meditate after they've arrived at their workplace in the car before going in, just taking a few minutes, or at lunchtime if you step away from your computer and from all the Zooms and things like that. So morning isn't the only time to meditate. Evening isn't the only time to meditate. I'd say they're the most popular, the bookends of the day. But I encourage everyone to experiment, to be willing to be playful and curious and notice what actually does work for you. And if you do have any other children or small children that are around, then the morning tends to be quite a difficult time when there are kids in your life. And if you don't have any now, but you do in the future, this is a question you can come back to. When actually would fit in now? And using myself as an example, I have noticed that while I have a consistent meditation practice, the time that I sit and meditate for has changed a lot over the last 10 years or so. And, there was a time when I used to have like an hour and a half self care ritual in the morning while my oatmeal was cooking. I did some yoga and stretches. I sat and meditated. Unfortunately, my life does not include that luxury, but my son started kindergarten in the past year. And now I know that after I do a school drop off, it's a great time to sit and practice. And the evening is a better time for me to sit and practice. So that's my regular practice time. So letting yourself really try things on a little bit. Where is another important one. This is a great opportunity to really consciously design the environment, the ideal environment of your meditation. And it is helpful, just as I encourage people to play around with what works, play around with a location, play around with the timing. And then when you find something that works and resonates, then you stick with it and you kind of dedicate your practice. You designate a spot and build up your ideal environment. And one of the questions to ask as you design a location and an environment is, are you someone who does better with bare bones approach or a full kit? By that I mean is, do you need stuff or no stuff? And it's not just a question of like materialism and materiality. It's it's a little bit of a personal style question though. But the reasons why you might want some stuff is as a visual cue or a reminder. Sometimes creating that environment helps to enforce the meditation practice because, I'll lift this up and show you where I'm sitting. And I have like a little sort of altar over here with a singing bowl and some rocks, shells, plants. I'm sitting here on my cushion with a blanket. I have a few things to make me comfortable. The cushion elevates my hips. Having a cushion is great. The blanket keeps me warm. And then I have some, little special things that have some kind of meaning for me. And so having some things can also link back to your why. What is it that you're seeking? And all of these things can become a visual cue. Even if you have nothing and you want to sit with nothing, but having that space then becomes a visual reminder, and that helps to enforce the habit. And I do recommend you find a space that is quiet, where you might not be disturbed, hopefully, but that's not too out of the way. So somewhere that you might pass by often enough for the idea of meditation to kind of arise in your mind, to make use of that visual cue. So sometimes having your space in an area like a corner of another room, a bedroom or living room, or a room you're in frequently can be helpful. Then we look at how long. I get this question almost more often than any other question. How long should I be meditating for? How long is really the best time? And it's interesting because they have done, a lot of studies on what meditation is doing to the brain and the research, especially in the functional MRIs. And there they might be like, it has to, for the study, there'll be, it'll be a specific time and it gets kind of more prescriptive, 40 minutes a day or something like that. But the truth is that any meditation is better than no meditation. So however long you can sit, especially in regards to what I mentioned before about being realistic and kind to yourself, starting simple, starting short, and then gradually building your habit. And I offer a not a formula, but I offer a way of doing this which is similar to kind of marathon training or some sort of endurance sport, where you have kind of a target time. Maybe you have a goal, like you want to be able to meditate 20 minutes a day, but you're going to start only a fraction of that, 4 or 5 minutes a day. And then you allow for variability in that as well. So you allow, you gradually, 4 minutes the first week, 5 minutes the second week, something like that. You build up 7 minutes the next week, but you allow for some times where you only sit for half of your usual time, and times where you sit for double and you get to experience a longer meditation. And this is the flexibility of having a structure, but not having too much rigidity in your structure. And I encourage people to use supportive resources or scaffolding for your practice. And that might be any of the many programs that are out there, or apps and things like technology. Might be books or journals or community. These are the things that will also really help to support your practice in a more long-term sense. And then the last question here is what? And this is more about what are you doing? What kind of meditation? What kind of practice? I usually speak about the two wings of meditation, which are wisdom and compassion. The wisdom practices are what I am more trained in with the Vipassana or insight meditation. This is the ability to see clearly and to really cultivate the mindfulness of what is arising in your moment-to-moment experience, this non-judgmental awareness. But then compassion, that is this heart, this relationship. So much of mindfulness and meditation is about how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to the world. And the two work together. And there are many different styles of meditation and practices out there. So I encourage, again, that curiosity as you just show up and just notice. What do you resonate with? Coming back to your why you're here, what benefits you're seeking. Maybe you're wanting to improve your memory and focus. And therefore, some of the more concentration techniques might be a good place to start. Maybe compassion, the metta loving kindness practice, will help you to improve relationships with yourself and with others. So there can be all kinds of types of practices. And I think that you can find a range, continue to explore with that curious openness and beginner's mind, explore what those range of practices are. And then also really noticing what works for you and staying with what works for you. And in that way, you're kind of honoring yourself too. You're honoring that part of you that is resonating and that is becoming present and awake and showing up in the practice. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to come over and look and see if there are any questions over here. And you're welcome to ask any questions. We are going to do a little bit of a meditation practice together as well. And so someone is mentioning the triggers, the cues as reminders for consistency, meditating right before falling asleep, but not consistent. So yeah, if you're not consistent, and I want to say it's okay to fall asleep at the end of meditation too, because the sleepiness is something we can work with. There are tricks that you can try meditating sitting up, right? So you're not actually lying down. Or if you are lying down, you can raise your hand so that your forearm is up. And then, that's if you need to be awake, that's something. But I've also found with the people I've worked with that sometimes falling asleep is the best form of self-compassion too. So I just want to put that out there. So I also wanted to take the time to do a little bit more of a meditation practice together and then open it up to any questions that you may have, any obstacles that you would like to troubleshoot, or anything else at all. So if you have something, you can enter it in now if you want to, or you can let it percolate a little bit and I'll come back to it in a little bit. So let's just take a moment and do another practice together. And go ahead and find a position, a posture that's comfortable for you. When I do my Path to Presence retreat, I go into a little more depth on all of these 5 points. And in the day on where, talk about how to make yourself comfortable and posture as well. So the meditation cushion or meditation stool is helpful because having your hips elevated above your knees and allowing for that natural curve in your spine tends to be a more comfortable position that you can maintain for a longer time. And again, being comfortable doing what helps you to a certain extent show up and continue to practice, that's eventually the habit itself reinforces itself because you're connecting with it. So it's not meant to be unbearable. It's not meant to be a struggle. It's often a turning to ease and resting into the practice. We'll experiment with that for a moment. So go ahead and come into that comfortable position. And just take a moment to arrive. And closing your eyes if that feels comfortable for you, or softening your gaze. And as you shift your attention inwards, noticing the sensations of breath, noticing those points of contact between the ground and your body. And feel yourself arriving. Let your awareness stay with the breath. Noticing, are you inhaling or exhaling? Letting your attention stay with the breath throughout a full cycle of the inhale and the exhale. Noticing where in your body it's easiest to connect with that flow of breath. Perhaps it's the entry and exit of breath at your nostrils. Or maybe you feel the rise and fall of your chest or your belly. Maybe you feel the breath creating space between your ribs, the rib cage moving in all directions. Maybe you feel the whole body breathing. Noticing that the more you follow the breath, the softer your body becomes. And the softer your body becomes, the easier it is to connect with the breath. While meditation is simple but not easy, there's no great Herculean effort required. Rather, we can take this opportunity to start to let go of effort, to shift from the busy doing mind into just being. And you allow yourself this moment to rest into your practice. Having a gentle awareness of how it is now for you, what you're experiencing in this moment. And in this moment, sensations in the body, the flow of breath. Maybe you notice the monkey mind and the busyness of distractions, thoughts, sounds, feelings. Can you let those flow by like clouds in the sky? Noticing them, observing as they emerge, take shape, and observing as they begin to change shape, to transform and fall away, dissolving back into that vast spaciousness. It's perfectly normal for us to have distractions. The mind secretes thoughts the way the mouth secretes saliva. And just allowing yourself to notice when you've drifted away, and gently, without judgment, returning your attention, anchoring into the body or the breath. And this is really all we're doing as we sit and practice. Turning again and again, practicing showing up for ourselves and showing up for all in our lives. Sensing into the fullness of your body, noticing the whole body sitting or lying. Breathe and know you're breathing. Inviting any tension to soften, resting into the practice. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes, returning your awareness back to your immediate surroundings. Noticing how you feel now, again, after just a few minutes of practice. And I wanted to take a moment in this practice with you to talk about that distractions of the mind or the heart and what it means to continue to be present and to show up, because we work on the practical aspects and the form, the container of your meditation, the practice as a habit. But invariably, there are times of difficulty, times of stress, times when in our lives we are distracted and pulled away. Knowing that that's not something we can necessarily control or change, but we can always notice it and then show up again and bring our attention gently back. And when we don't show up for a meditation practice, rather than cracking the whip on ourselves and activating the harsh inner critic, we can have some compassion for the difficulty that we've experienced, and then gently returning, showing up the next day, coming back. So that's another important piece, is to rest into it and to be compassionate with yourself, so that you know that this is part of it. This returning is part of it. So I'm going to take a moment and come over and see if there are any questions over here. And oh yes, I see someone has mentioned doing a circle and bloom meditation during acupuncture and almost always falling asleep. Yes, well, that's nice. I like that you're bringing the program, the practice into the acupuncture session. As I mentioned, I do meditation with my acupuncture patients. And falling asleep is pretty common for my acupuncture patients too. So I see that is helpful. And if you have any questions about your practice, go ahead. I open the floor up to you now to, ask me anything you'd like. And I also have a sort of a handout, like a PDF document that goes through a lot of what I just presented in the slideshow. And I do have that on my website. I just came out with it recently. It's like a step-by-step guide to building a meditation practice that sticks. So I will attempt to put that into the Facebook group for you, or I can also, if not, put the link to it on my website so that you have something that you can help to return to, like a little guide, a little cheat sheet that you can return to. And I do have another Path to Presence retreat in April sometime, and then I think it's the 14th, whatever that Monday around there is. And I do a free meditation every week on Thursdays, Thursday morning inside my Seaside Meditation Facebook group. So maybe I can post that in there in case anyone, it's just free in case you're wanting to do that. Today I spoke about letting go. Each week is a different topic depending on what I feel like. But I am so glad to be here to support you all in your journey of using meditation and mindfulness to help you conceive and to help you show up in life. And if there aren't any questions, I'll give it another moment, then I will probably let you go on about your life. So thank you for having me, Amy and Circle and Bloom. I love the ability to collaborate. Oh yeah, Amy put one link up there. Thank you, Amy. Maybe I'll figure out the other one later. So yeah, I love collaborating with Circle and Bloom. Here's one question coming in. How is a helpful way in a meditation when distracted by outside noises to come back to the meditation? I can definitely speak to that. One of my favorite practices is using sound in meditation. So I would recommend trying that out for a little while. And the beauty of using sound as an object of awareness in your meditation is it is external. And so you can work with sound, just noticing it, just as you would notice the breath and sensations in the body, which is the anchoring techniques we just did. You can start to notice the sound, and you can notice it. I think I have a meditation on this I can share too. You can notice what are the sounds in the room. You can let sound be the object. And when you notice it, let your attention sort of rest. This is what I recommend. Let your attention just rest in the opening of your ears. And rather than finding the sound or grabbing onto the sound, let the sound come to you. Let those sound waves reach you. And just notice the sense, the quality of the sound. Notice, is it constant? Does it change? Really notice it like a texture. Notice the quality. And you notice the sounds that are close in your room. You notice the sounds that are in the house, the sounds that are outside, the sounds of nature, the sounds of traffic and of people. And that can change your relationship to the sound. You might even notice the stories that come up around the sound, right? Or the liking or disliking of sound. And so even things. This, I usually say the weed whacker. The weed whacker is the sound that I always hear in a semi sort of suburban area here in Marblehead. And the weed whacker, it's like kind of this really irritating sound that often just, interrupts my meditation practice. And yet it's the reminder as well. It's the reminder to be present and the opportunity to return your attention to the moment. So in a weird way, sometimes those distractions can actually be really helpful reminders or ways to come back to your practice, this invitation. And a meditation stool. Yeah, I don't have any like product endorsement or anything going on here. I definitely think I would probably just say look at it on Amazon, although I should look and see if there's like a good local small store somewhere that could use some support. And a sound bowl, the singing bowl is lovely. I have gotten a lot of these things though, honestly, from on Amazon. Hate to admit it, but it's true. Meditation cushion. This is the cushion that I'm on, just like a simple black cotton cushion. I have a couple of different cushions that I've tried out. All these things are usually not too expensive. The cushions are like $20 or $30. The stools as well are not too much. They have like wooden stools that are on an angle that have legs that kind of fold in. Those ones work pretty well. I run a 6-week course, and someone in my 6-week course right now found a stool and suddenly her low back was comfortable. And she also said it was one of the wooden ones that sort of tilt forward a little with the legs that fold in. So look around, try it out. If you don't like it, then try another one. So yeah, I think that's it. Good. I'm happy to oh yeah, look, there's a couple of things in here. Thanks, Amy, for putting the links in. Yeah, I'm happy to answer everyone's questions, and like I said, to support you in this journey. And I hope that you are able to have a curious, open beginner's mind and experiment with some of the different aspects that I mentioned. And then you find what works for you. And then when you notice that it's not working for you, you can return again and be like, this no longer works. How can I make it work for me again? How can I make this practice grow into what I need it to be now? Maybe even your reason why shifts. In the 6-week course that I mentioned I run, I always start by asking the why, and at the end we revisit the why. And at least half the time it's shifted, even just in 6 weeks. All right, so it's been almost an hour. I think I will let you all go on about your day. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I wish you all well. Thanks so much.